In Barcelona, Spain, we know a love story that began with true love but had a tragic ending, Miguel and Marisol. Miguel met his future wife, Marisol, at a shopping center where she had a store. Miguel was looking for shoes for his mother, as it was her birthday, and Marisol kindly approached the young man, who seemed very pleased with her service. Miguel was head over heels for that young woman and decided to see her more often at that shopping center. He couldn't stop thinking about the girl who had captured his heart. A week later, Miguel returned to that store to see Marisol again, but she wasn't there, which made him very anxious and worried, thinking that she might have been fired or transferred to another department. He asked what had happened to the saleswoman named Marisol who worked in that store. One of the saleswomen approached him and said that Marisol was at the bank making a deposit and would be back later. So, Miguel decided to wait for her. 2 hours of intense waiting and apprehension later, Miguel saw Marisol and decided to propose to her immediately, without wanting to get to know her well. He was overwhelmed by the emotion of meeting that young saleswoman. Marisol, with her head in the clouds, accepted the proposal, and the young couple lived very well together. They seemed very much in love and seemed to get along very well with each other. A year later, after a very committed and happy courtship, they got married in a beautiful church in Barcelona, and everyone seemed happy with the happiness of that young couple. But fate, being very sarcastic, and life, being very tricky, had other plans for those young people. They seemed very dedicated and loved each other a lot. Both had their independent professional lives. Marisol was the owner of a chain of stores and a fashion designer, and Miguel worked for a prestigious civil construction company. Since both were very busy, they decided not to have children for at least the next 5 years. After a happy marriage, where the couple was devoted to each other and exhausted from their jobs, Miguel and Marisol had their first child, whom they named Sebastián. This made the couple very happy and overjoyed with their firstborn. 3 years later, they had a daughter, whom they named Valeria, and this girl added even more joy to a family that seemed strong and very well structured. The family appeared very happy, and everything was going smoothly until a few years later. Because the couple was very busy, Miguel with his work at the construction company and Marisol dedicating herself to her fashion collections and having little time for their children, the couple decided to hire a nanny to take care of and protect their children. Despite their efforts to be the best parents they could and to be present in their children's lives as much as possible, they needed help. So, Miguel decided to hire the services of a nanny agency he saw advertised in a newspaper at home. A week later, the agency sent one of their best candidates for the job. They were introduced to a young woman named Niara, a 21-year-old, tall and beautiful, with an angelic look, clear eyes, and a sculptural body that resembled a true Greek statue. They immediately spoke with the girl and agreed on her salary, work hours, the tasks she needed to do, and her days off during the week. The couple treated the girl with great kindness, as if she were part of the family. Marisol believed that her children could now be in good hands with the young woman, who seemed to be kind, well-mannered, and even respectful towards her employers. Miguel was completely absent from the household affairs due to his job and didn't notice the changes happening at home. One day, when Miguel came home from work, he was greeted by a delicious aroma in the air. The house was filled with the smell of food, which delighted the family, especially Miguel, who seemed enchanted by it all. Months went by, and Marisol started to grow fond of Niara. Besides being very attentive, she had a charismatic way of being kind and special with the couple's children. Niara did her job with mastery and gave her best to the children. But soon, a hidden side of Niara that no one knew would be revealed. One afternoon, Marisol came home after a fashion show where she had presented one of her collections and encountered a horrible and unpleasant scene inside her house. Marisol saw Niara yelling at her children and being rude to them. This made Marisol very angry and indignant. She confronted Niara right there in front of her children, scolding her, and demanded that Niara be more polite and kind to her children because Marisol would not tolerate anyone humiliating her children, not even in her own home. After this incident, Niara's behavior changed completely. She was no longer the kind, polite, and gentle young woman who followed her boss's orders and respected her as before. If Marisol asked her to prepare a specific meal, Niara would do whatever suited her and didn't care what Marisol wanted for meals. She began neglecting her duties, becoming completely lax and immature. Niara would just watch TV and neglect the children. One unexpected day, Sebastián, the eldest son of Miguel and Marisol, cut himself with scissors. Niara didn't show the slightest concern or attention to the child's accident and didn't care what happened to him. Seeing all these incidents and the total lack of responsibility from the young nanny, Marisol decided to talk to her husband. She told Miguel that she was going to fire Niara and explained that the young woman was practically no longer doing her job properly and had become totally rebellious and disobedient. Miguel, who usually didn't have an opinion on such matters, reacted very strangely. He defended Niara fiercely, saying to his wife, "Marisol, all this is just a figment of your imagination to get rid of the girl and take her out of the job. Lately, you've been hysterical." Marisol, upset by her husband's response, replied harshly, "Hysterical? Me? How can you say that? My love. You know I have a good character and respect everyone. If I'm unhappy with Niara, it's because she's slacking off and not doing her tasks as before, not taking care of the kids like she used to, and not even doing her chores. She practically acts like she's the boss and not an employee." Trying to calm the situation, Miguel responded to his wife, "What I think is that the girl must be stressed and has too much work. We can hire someone else to help Niara and relieve her stress. Be patient, my love." Still upset about the situation, Marisol responded, "I don't believe it. She only takes care of the kids and cooks for them. An extra salary would be a waste." Miguel replied with a reassuring smile, "Don't worry. I'll take care of it. Now leave the girl alone. Let's try to start fresh and move on, my dear wife." Miguel hugged and kissed Marisol. She wasn't at all happy with her husband's attitude and found it very strange for a boss, which started to raise doubts about her husband's behavior at home. The next day, Marisol confided in her sister Carmen and told her everything, from the incidents with the nanny to Miguel's complete lack of involvement in these situations. Carmen spoke clearly and directly to her sister, Marisol. "Open your eyes. This isn't normal, and something is wrong. It's not normal for a married man to defend an employee like that. Something is fishy here. Be alert, my dear sister." After that heated conversation, Marisol went home and said goodbye to her sister. Marisol was preparing to launch a new collection and was going to wear her best dress. The next day, Marisol had to launch a new line, and Miguel didn't want to accompany her. Marisol wasn't upset and said she would be home very late. Miguel told her, "Don't worry, my love. You can stay as long as you want. There's no need to rush back. My love." Marisol said goodbye to her husband and went to the venue. Marisol presented her show and collection without any issues, and at the end, her collection was a huge success, earning praise from the audience, who applauded and lauded the young designer. After the show, Marisol decided to return home. When she arrived, Marisol had no idea it would be her last night in that mansion. She couldn't find her husband anywhere and searched the entire house without success. Tired of searching, Marisol remembered her sister Carmen's words and decided to check the servants' quarters. Marisol couldn't imagine what she was about to see that would traumatize her for the rest of her life. When she reached the servants' quarters, Marisol was shocked by what she saw: Miguel and Niara in bed, completely naked. Marisol screamed in rage and threw objects at the pair caught in adultery. Upon being discovered, Miguel tried to apologize, but Marisol yelled, "Get out of here right now with your lover. I don't want to see you here. You've destroyed our family." But then something Marisol never imagined happened. She and her children ended up out on the street. At that moment, Niara said to Miguel, brazenly and shamelessly, "Miguel, If you want to be with me, you'll have to get that woman out of here. I am passion. I am youth, I am life. I can make you happy. But don't let that woman humiliate me. Encouraged by Niara's words, Miguel responded to Marisol, Marisol. Forgive me. But our relationship is strained. In Niara, I found everything I needed. I don't want to argue anymore. Because I respect you as the mother of my children. So, you can take the kids and leave this house. Marisol, stunned by Miguel's audacity, said to her husband, is that woman worth more than all our years of marriage and our family? How can you be such a scoundrel, Miguel? Throwing away so many years of marriage. Idiot. Miguel, confident in his decision, replied to Marisol, it's not about worth. She makes me happy, and I'm sorry. She makes me feel like a man again. I feel young again. This woman has awakened everything in me that has been dormant all these years. Now, don't argue, Marisol. Take the kids and leave right now. Then Niara, feeling like the mistress of the house, grabbed Marisol by the arm and threw her out of her room and the house with her children, while Miguel just watched as if his own will had disappeared and he had no action at the moment. At midnight, Marisol and her children left the house as if they were dogs, and Niara just laughed at the situation, blowing kisses wildly and sarcastically. Marisol was disappointed with the end of her marriage, but she was a strong and independent woman, a fashion designer with her own store, and she decided to move on with her children. Marisol created and evolved over time, and her collections were very successful. Eventually, she got a house bigger and nicer than her husband Miguel's. Initially, Miguel missed Sebastián and Valeria, but over time they embraced their mother's love. Since leaving Marisol and the kids out on the street, Miguel didn't look for his children and didn't bother to know about them, much less fulfill his obligations as a father, such as child support, and he never heard from them again. Miguel and Niara only became more entangled, and the unfaithful couple fell more and more in love, but soon Miguel would reap the consequences of his immature behavior. The unfaithful man had no idea of the beating life would give him. 15 years later, Marisol moved on and raised her children. Sebastián became a pediatrician, and Valeria became a businesswoman. Both children grew up and followed their paths, but they both harbored a strong resentment towards their absent father and Miguel's lack of communication with them. One day, Marisol met a man at a fashion conference who did business with her store. The man introduced himself as Ramon, a mature man with a beautiful athletic build, well-maintained, and handsome. He started getting involved with Marisol. The mature woman was astonished to find new love. Ramon began to win Marisol's heart, and her children seemed to approve of the relationship, wanting to see their mother happy. As a gesture of his love, Ramon invested in a business with Marisol that was very successful, making the fashion entrepreneur's business prosper even more, enriching her. Every month, Ramon visited Marisol's store and did more business. The relationship began to take shape, and one day Ramon declared to Marisol, "Marisol, I love you. I want to marry you and spend the rest of my life with you. You are the woman of my life. I love you and can't live without you. I want to always be by your side." A stunned Marisol replied to Ramon, "Yes, I accept. I want to move forward and be very happy by your side, my love." The woman accepted the man's proposal and decided to give love a chance. After a few months of preparations, Ramon and Marisol got married in a beautiful ceremony with a fashion show and models dressed as brides, which made the celebration even more lively. Sebastián and Valeria were overflowing with joy because their mother had sacrificed her entire life to raise them with all the comforts, love, and presents possible. They believed their mother deserved to be happy with someone who truly loved her without pretense. They knew their mother had finally found a man who loved her unconditionally and valued her, and they saw that Ramon would even die for her. Meanwhile, with Miguel and Niara, the couple continued to live well, and since Miguel hadn't had any contact with Marisol and his children since kicking them out 15 years ago, life was soon going to make Miguel pay for what he had done to his family. Niara and Miguel didn't have children, so they lived alone in that mansion, living off expenses and uselessness. But things for Miguel would soon crumble. One day, as Miguel was leaving his job at the construction company where he worked, he was driving his car when a beggar crossed the street. Startled, he swerved, but ended up crashing into a curb. Not wearing his seatbelt, Miguel was thrown from the car and was injured by the impact. He lay unconscious on the pavement after the accident, and a passerby called an ambulance to help the unconscious and injured man on the road. The ambulance arrived, picked him up, took him to the hospital, and went through all the procedures. The doctors found out who he was and called Niara, who, very moved at first, answered the call. A nurse on the other end told Niara that Miguel had had an accident and was seriously injured. Niara rushed to the hospital, while Sebastián, Marisol, Valeria, and Ramon enjoyed a pleasant family moment, unaware that Miguel had had an accident and was in the hospital. After a while, Miguel woke up in the hospital. Seeing himself all bandaged and bruised, he agitatedly asked, "What happened? Where am I, and why am I in the hospital?" The doctor told Miguel that he had been in an accident and nearly lost his life, but he delivered terrible news: Miguel's spine was damaged, and he would be paralyzed from the waist down, never to walk again. Miguel was utterly devastated by this diagnosis and never imagined this would happen to him. Due to the terrible news, the nurses injected him with sedatives to calm him down, and he slept like a baby. But after the medication's effects wore off, Miguel woke up with Niara by his side. He believed she wouldn't leave him in this situation, and now Miguel would know if her love for him was true or not. Niara didn't look pleased and said, "I see you're awake. Dear Miguel, the doctor will discharge you soon, and we'll go home." An emotional Miguel replied, "My love. I knew you wouldn't abandon me in this crucial moment when I need you the most." But Niara thought, "The idiot Miguel thinks I'm going to waste my beauty taking care of him and ruining my figure. Maybe this is his karma for throwing out his wife and kids in the middle of the night to be with me. But I'm not sharing that karma or the fate he's created for himself. What an idiot this man is." When the doctor discharged him, Niara took Miguel home. Miguel soon realized that his lover was becoming a completely different person than he had imagined. Every time he asked Niara for something to eat, she gave him something poor and worthless, and when he complimented her, she constantly humiliated him. She continued to take care of him until she got bored. Over time, Niara became increasingly rude and cruel to Miguel, humiliating him cruelly and mercilessly in the house. Miguel thought she was just bored with the situation and would soon calm down, but he would soon regret having that thought. One day, when Miguel woke up after a month of living in that situation, Niara, with a very serious and empty look, revealed her true self and said to Miguel, "Listen, Miguel. I'm sick of this situation. You lost your job after the accident. The bills are overdue, and I can't keep living like this. I want to tell you, dear, that the love is over. I'm sorry, honey. But I'm not going to waste my beauty and my life taking care of a broken old man condemned to a wheelchair." When Miguel heard this from Niara, he replied in astonishment, "Niara, you must be joking, my love. Have you forgotten that I gave you the life of a queen? I left everything for you. My wife, Marisol. My children, Valeria and Sebastián. I left my family for you, and how do you repay me? You stab me in the face and in the heart. Don't do this to me, Niara. Tell me it's not true. Tell me it's a joke." Niara, with a twisted expression, said, "Dear Miguel, I didn't force you to abandon your children and your wife in the middle of the night. I just gave you a hand. Unfortunately, dear, in that wheelchair, you're completely useless. You're no good to me. Not even for sex like you used to be. You forged this fate, not me." Niara laughed at Miguel and mocked him, and for the first time, Miguel shouted angrily, now I see you're nothing but a common street woman. You're a real harlot. After everything I've done for you. Ungrateful. You're worth nothing. Only now do I realize how stupid I was to leave my wife Marisol and my children for a woman like you. What a fool I was, my God. If only I could go back in time. I wish I'd never gotten involved with you. Niara's expression changed from libertine to indignation, and she said to him, you respect me, Miguel. I'm not a street woman. What's more, you're leaving this house. Because I'm not going to take care of you. Here are your things, you unfaithful idiot. Go back to Marisol and your kids. Maybe they'll take pity on you and take you in. Which I highly doubt. They must really hate you. I doubt they want you back. Now get out and leave. I'm going after a healthy and strong man. You're no longer useful to me, dear Miguel. Trembling in his wheelchair, Miguel shouted, really, Niara? You're human trash. A piece of street garbage. Miserable. Wretched. And Niara replied libertinely, I'm not trash. You are, dear Miguel. And Niara did exactly what Miguel had done to his family. She pushed his wheelchair, with him in it, outside and threw him out in the middle of the night. She repeated the same words, now get out, Miguel. Go find your dear Marisol and your kids. Maybe they'll take you in out of pity. I've removed you from my property, and I don't want you here anymore. Miguel shouted, you wretched woman. I hope life gives you your karma someday, just like it's giving it to me now. If I ever get up from this wheelchair, one day I'll come back and settle the score with you. But Niara didn't listen to Miguel's curses and threw him out into the cold night without a home. Miguel spent days wandering the streets of Barcelona, surviving on leftover food and enduring the sun and rain. One day, he saw a woman sitting on a bench in a plaza and asked her to read the newspaper for him. He saw Marisol and his children in a photo of her wedding. Then Miguel thought to himself, my God. What have I done with my life? Marisol is happy with another man who has taken my place and now leads my family. My children Sebastian and Valeria are so beautiful. I'm going to find them. If they love me and have a bit of compassion, they will help and take me in. I will return to their lives and ask for their forgiveness. I'm sure they will welcome me. After all, I am their father, and I gave them life. My children can't abandon me now. I've lost everything because of that wretched Niara. My children will take me in. I'll go to Marisol's house and ask for help. The address is in the newspaper, and I'll go there. Miguel gathered his strength, moved the wheels of his wheelchair into the street, and decided to head to the address. Some kind-hearted passers-by helped him along the way, but Miguel could not imagine the terrible reception he would face when he arrived at his ex-wife Marisol's mansion and the treatment he would receive from his children and his ex-wife. After days enjoying their honeymoon, traveling and sightseeing, Ramon and Marisol returned from their honeymoon to an incredible surprise. They were greeted with a grand party and a triumphant return. Marisol's own children surprised the couple and organized a welcome party for them. Ramon had already won the affection of Sebastian and Valeria. They had prepared all the details out of love for their mother, celebrating this family moment. When the doorbell rang, Ramon offered to answer it. Ramon went to the door, and he was shocked to see a man in a wheelchair, looking gaunt and sad. Recovering from the shock, Ramon asked, "Can I help you? Where did you come from? What do you want here?" Ramon turned to Marisol and called out, "Love, there's a dreadful-looking man at the door asking for you and your children. Do you want to see him, or should I make him leave? Just say the word, my love, and I'll do it right now." Marisol responded kindly to her husband, "Don't worry, my love. I'll see him. Maybe he's someone I know from work." She went to the door and recognized the grotesque figure. It was her ex-husband, Miguel. Miguel, very emotional and sad, said to Marisol, good afternoon, Marisol. I've come to ask for your forgiveness for my stupidity and mistakes. I know I've behaved badly all these years, but life has taught me a lesson. I've come to ask for your forgiveness and that of our children. I need you more than ever right now. I hope you can help me in this crucial moment. Ramon then turned to face Marisol's ex and said to Miguel with a very serious expression, "So, you're the jerk ex-husband of Marisol and the father of Sebastián and Valeria. You're Miguel, Marisol's first husband and shameless ex. Marisol and my stepchildren have told me a lot about you. The real scumbag who threw out his wife and kids to be with the nanny. What a crazy thing you did, man." Sebastián shouted angrily at Miguel, "What's that man doing here? Get him out of here. Mom, tell him to leave. When I needed him most, he wasn't there for me or my sister. Get out of here now, sir." Valeria, supporting her brother and feeling indignant, also responded, "We're celebrating our mom's wedding to a real man, and there's no place for you here. Leave now." But Marisol calmed her children and asked Miguel, "Miguel, what do you want here? I haven't seen you since you threw your children and me out of the house. What happened to you?" Miguel replied, crying, "I need your forgiveness and your charity. I had an accident and became paralyzed. Niara threw me out of the house after the accident, and now I have nowhere to go. I'm also out of work because of my condition." Sebastián responded aggressively, "Sir, I ask you to leave. This is not a charity center or an asylum. Go away and don't come back. You preferred our nanny over our mom. You're not welcome here. Get out right now." Valeria added indignantly, "If you haven't been around or cared about us all these years, then we have no obligation or commitment to you. Get out of here, sir. Go back to your lover and leave us in peace. You are not welcome here, sir. We never forgave you for throwing us out on the street for your lover, and since that day, Sebastián and I promised that we would never forgive you. You implanted this in us. Now you must bear the consequences." Then Marisol calmed her children and said, "Calm down, my children. My dears. I understand your anger, and you have every right to feel this way about your father. But we must always show charity to those in need, even to a beggar like Miguel." So Marisol took some money from her purse and, with the help of her husband Ramon, called a taxi to take Miguel to a homeless shelter, where he lived for the rest of his life. Miguel said his last words in an emotional and sad farewell, "I'm sorry for all the harm I caused you, Sebastián and Valeria, and you too, Marisol. I wish you happiness, and if it's necessary for me to leave your lives for you to be happy, I accept this fate that I created for myself. A blind passion for a young woman who only brought curses and consequences to my life. I hope you all find happiness." When the taxi arrived, Ramon helped Miguel into the car, and the man in the wheelchair was taken to the shelter. Neither Marisol, Valeria, nor Sebastián wanted anything more to do with Miguel, who ended up abandoned and alone, having paid a high price for leaving his family for an opportunist. Marisol, Ramon, Valeria, and Sebastián moved on as a true family, with Ramon loving his stepchildren and being happy with the love of his life, Marisol, and her children, Sebastián and Valeria. In time, Marisol, still in her maturity, gave her husband the news that she was pregnant with Ramon, which made him very happy. Marisol was thrilled to know she would be a mother again, to the joy of Sebastián and Valeria, who would have a little brother or sister. Ramon and Marisol had a daughter, who became the cherished joy of their family, bringing them even closer together. Meanwhile, Miguel, abandoned and living in the homeless shelter, never forgave himself for leaving his family for Niara. Years later, Miguel died in the shelter, and out of pity, Ramon and Marisol provided a burial for Marisol's ex-husband. Sebastián and Valeria tried to forget the traumas that had affected them over the years and attempted to start their lives anew.